Hello world of YouTube and welcome to another episode of Redacted, the show where I take a look at records that have a solid foundation, but a spotty execution, and making a smoother listening experience out of said project. And the subject of this month is one that I've talked about pretty recently, and one that I have been working on for even longer than that. It is a double album that is notorious for being loved by its fans of the band, and is the last thing that the band in question has put out. Talking, of course, about the 2005 double package that was Mezmerize and Hypnotize by System of a Down that I'm bringing together into a project that I'm going to call Mezmertize.
Set apart! Why do you always set apart? Why do you always set apart? She's scared that I will take her away.
Now, like I said in my reformatted discography review, I like both of these records. Mezmerize is my favorite System of a Down project. If you haven't seen my reformatted discography review where I talk about both of these records proper along with the rest of the discography, it's on screen now on a card up here, and you know, I talked about this video in that video, and while I enjoy Mezmerize a lot and feel like I wouldn't personally want to take anything away from that, if I am going to, you know, entertain the idea of bringing them together, bringing Mezmerize and Hypnotize together, I need to factor in that there are some songs on Mezmerize and Hypnotize that don't necessarily fit the titular themes that the record dives into of deconstruction of war or deconstruction of and commentary on vapid Hollywood. You know, both of those are subjects that are heavily talked about on both of these records, and they act as sort of the anchor of thematics to these projects. And while I kept some that don't necessarily tie into those, I cut a lot of the ones that don't. And also, I just had to make cuts because I got to keep this like around the same range as the System of a Down project. There's no System of a Down record that creeps over, you know, creeps into the 50-minute mark. I get close. I get 49 minutes in this version of the record. There's 14 songs on this version of the record, which I'll get into specifics of why I kept what I kept following the track listing, which is this.
Kneeling roses disappearing into Moses' shrine. There's nothing wrong with me, there's something wrong with you, there's something wrong with me. I heard bits of sun doesn't need the fade. They disguise it here. The song everywhere, hold your brother. Dang, we're going down in a spot. Come join the cause. Who wants to come with me? Come join the cause. Those songs, living it all. My cock is much bigger than yours. My cock can walk right through the liar, killer, demon. And you and me will all go down in history. I wrote you. One's left. God is wearing black.
Now I'll talk about the songs and specifics that I cut from the two records at the end after I talk about the track listing. But up front, I cut the intro of Soldier Side because while it works for the double album experience of establishing thematics and concepts, if I'm keeping it one record, I can just cut it. I don't need it here. And B.Y.O.B does a great job at also introducing the thematics and concepts that the album's going to delve into, at least the political side of it, with some visceral guitar playing, some great performances out of both Serge and Darren, and it's just a tight, fast, punchy song that I wanted to kick off the record proper with before continuing that momentum immediately with Dreaming. And that's, I always talk about how there's at least one instance on a Redacted where I'm like, that's why I do this segment, baby. There's a couple in this, but this transition from B.Y.O.B's intensity immediately into Dreaming's just feels so gratifying to hear. And Dreaming, while not necessarily tied to the concepts of the other half of the coin, dissection and commentary on the vapidness in Hollywood, it does in its own sort of pseudo-allegorical way. Plus, Dreaming as a lyrical thread is something that another song that's on here talks about in its own ways, and I kind of wanted to have that kind of be a planting and payoff moment, sort of tying threads from both projects together into a cohesive experience as well. And so I wanted to keep it here because I wanted to keep the other song also that I kept for my own very personal reasons. But Again, it's a great lead-in after B.Y.O.B. before continuing the intensity with some punchy-ass guitar work on This Cocaine Makes Me Feel Like I'm on this song, which is a further cementing more of some of the ideas talked about in Dreaming, or at least sort of, again, tying it to that vapid Hollywood. The song's about drug use, cocaine, the negative effects of it. And again, that's another subject that this record also talks about in that vein, and I wanted to keep it here for that reason. And it's another, again, punchy-ass moment that I finally give the listener a sort of a come-down, a release from that intensity with Hypnotize, which is an incredible song that showcases Serge and Darren's talents as a whole. The bridge, the solo work on this is amazing. I love the bass line in this song. It's just an incredible fucking single from this era that I really, really love. And again, further cements those themes of politics and war. That then transitions into one moment that I kept that is not necessarily about either thing, but it's a Dadaist moment, which is very System of a Down. If you're going to have a System of a Down moment, you need a little bit of absurdity. And Vicinity of Obscenity is that moment. It's a fucking great song that, again, is a little heavy. It's just very nonsensical as well. It's got a hell of a chorus, and it's one sort of diversion from the topic at hand that then immediately is switched back into it with Tentative, which is a song sort of written from the perspective of those in war-filled areas discussing where they live once the bombs fall and destroy their community, what really happens. It's a song, I love the perspective in the writing, I love the overall delivery of its message, and I used it as a sort of reintroduction back into the themes, the concepts of the record at this point, that then kind of shifts into my own personal. This is sort of I like the transition from Tentative into Question. Question doesn't necessarily tie into the themes of the record, but it sort of continues the lyrical threads from Dreaming. This is the sort of payoff moment, and I love this song. It's probably my favorite System of a Down song. Like, I love the time signature changes that just happen throughout the song. I love the intensity in it. I love the accompaniment in it. I love, again, that bass work by Shavo on this track is incredible. I love the final chorus when the hi-hat riding comes in. So fucking good. There's a lot of great moments in this song alone, and it's just more here to be a showcase of System of a Down's talents as a band while also sort of continuing some lyrical threads, again, thematics that have happened throughout these two records. That then goes back into the politics with U-Fig, sort of, again, a payoff from B.Y.O.B's talking of living in the sun. This is the same thing, but the other side of that coin, talking about military propaganda and the negative effects of it, and it's just a heavy-ass fucking song that, again, follows Question really, really well, before Stealing Society comes in and talks about drug use, and again, flips the other side of the coin, talks about those lyrical threads of vapidness in Hollywood, and the shittiness about it, and again, heavy drug use and the negative effects of it. It's another, again, just nailing you on the head with these songs about the topics. I'm keeping it consistent about the topics, the thematics, the concepts, the two records try to delve into. I wanted to use the Redacted as a point to laser focus on them, even if I jump between the two pretty intensely throughout this point, because we're switching back into Cigaro, which is a moment where it's not necessarily the last heavy moment, but it's the last super, super heavy moment that also acts as one last comedically driven moment in the record where, again, the song itself, it's a memorable, people know this song because the verses are, my cock is much bigger than yours, my cock can walk right through the door. It's about the dick measuring contest that is politics during wartime. Everyone's guns are bigger. We're going to talk about whose guns are bigger. And again, it's not necessarily the last super heavy moment, it's the last intense moment. It's the most intense the record gets, and I wanted to use that as a point to be kind of funny before getting into more serious and ballad-esque moments like Holy Mountains, which is a very important song to System of a Down. It's, again, more about Armenian culture, and I wanted to include it because it is such an important song and an important piece of System of a Down's character as a band. They write about the subject a lot, and I felt like I needed to keep it here. In fact, I did like a last, like I kept looking over this list, finding a place to put it in, and I made one last cut and put it there, like put it here to act as sort of another moment where System of a Down gets to be System of a Down. And the song Holy Mountains itself also kind of ties into the themes of war and freedom and all that sort of stuff that this record has cemented at its core, because it also goes into Sad Statue, which is the last really heavy moment with faster paced guitars and stuff, where it again talks about war, liberty, all that sort of stuff, the downside of that, just further affirming those concepts before we get one last deconstruction of Hollywood in a more bleak, sad sense, and Lost in Hollywood, which is an incredible fucking track that sees Darren doing his thing. It's a great song. I love this moment on Mezmerize, and I had to keep it here, and I use it. It's the closing moment of the vapid deconstruction of Hollywood, because I close the record proper with Soldier Side, which is one last big flourishing finish ballad that also talks about war. War was a big thing in this era. I mean, it's always been kind of a big thing in System of a Down, but they really wrote a lot of war songs during this era, and I wanted to close it out on this big, almost Ariels-esque closer that sees the band, again, talking about war and politics and the disgustingness that comes in it. And if this album didn't nail you over the head with its themes enough, they gave you one last one as the closer. That's how I closed it. That's my Mezmertize. And I'm sure a lot of people have their own version of this, and people are wondering, why I didn't keep old school Hollywood or violent pornography. Violent pornography is a great example of deconstruction of news and how it kind of ties into both concepts. And honestly, I thought about bringing it in, but I couldn't find a place for it to really fit in the track listing personally. And Radio Video, while it's an incredible song that showcases System of a Down's more eccentric side, I kept it off because I wanted to have as little diversion from the two concepts as possible. I have the Dadaist song, I have my favorite song that's just an impressive showcasing of their musicianship. But Radio Video I felt like I could keep off, and same with Old School Hollywood. I wanted so hard to keep Old School Hollywood on, because I love that song. I love the synths, I love the robot voice, and you could argue it fits with the Hollywood theme. Old School, Lost in Hollywood are two songs, and that was originally why I kept it on here until very recently when I decided to just cut it. Which is ultimately why Revenge also didn't, or Revenja didn't make this cut of the record as well, because, again, I wanted to keep away from as many diversions as possible. I think Revenja is another classic sounding System of a Down song from its rapid fire delivery, and it also deals with serious subject matter, but it honestly was the last song I cut to keep Holy Mountains in, because I feel like Holy Mountains is more pertinent to System of a Down as a band, personally. And as far as some of the songs from Hypnotize, I cut a lot of Hypnotize. I cut a decent amount of Mezmerize, but songs like She's Like Heroin and Kill Rock and Roll I cut because they are more Scars on Broadway than they are System of a Down, and while they have their wacky moments, I didn't feel like they added much to the album I was pulling together. And Lonely Day fucking sucks, so I didn't put it on here because I hate that song. It's probably System of a Down's worst song, in my opinion. And that's my Redacted on Mezmerize and Hypnotize. What did you think about it? Did you like it? If you did like this video, be sure to give it a like. If you have your own Redacted of this album, be sure to leave it in the comments below. Talk about that. If you have an album you would like for me to redact on the channel as well, leave that in the comments. I have one coming up in a couple of months that will be a viewer request. And yeah, if you want to see more of my music, gaming, and genre nerdery content, be sure to subscribe. Special thanks to my patrons if you would like to join their ranks to get early access to content, exclusive content, and help drive the community. It's linked in the description. I'm going to get out of here. I have been Viral Rack. You guys have good days, lives, and situations, and I'll see you another day.